Welcome to Research Talk. I hope you all are enjoying our journey together on qualitative research. In this video, I'm going to give another example of an analytic memo, which is written by the researcher towards the end of the data analysis. So, sort of a final phase of data collection and data analysis. So, as you could see on the top, the research topic is experiences of Black women faculty in higher education. And as I said previously, this reflection is written on the final phase of data collection and theoretical sampling. The date, as you see here, and the researcher who wrote the analytic memo. Introduction. So, introduction, obviously, you talk about what you're going to talk about in this memo. So he writes, as we approach the conclusion of our data collection phase of the study on the experiences of Black women faculty in higher education, this memo serves to document critical insights gained during the final round of interviews and theoretical sampling. This phase was guided by gaps identified in earlier analysis, aiming to deepen our understanding to specific themes and refine our conceptual framework. So that's sort of introduction about this analytic memo. Now let's move to the next section. So he now is in the next section, he is sharing his reflections, what he has observed, what he has experienced during this phase of data analysis and data collection. So the first observation he's writing is the role of institutional climate. And he says the final data collection phase has brought to the forefront the pivotal role of institutional climate in shaping the experiences of Black women faculty. Discussions revealed how the subtleties of institutional culture, ranging from the visibility of diverse role models to the inclusivity of decision-making processes, significantly impact their sense of belonging and professional growth. This insight emphasizes the need for institutions to move beyond tokenistic diversity efforts, focusing on cultivating an environment that genuinely support and value diversity. So he's writing about his observation from the data analysis and data collection, where he is now saying that institutional climate is more important rather than doing a few things here and there to show that you value diversity. So that's an important observation he is making from data analysis and data collection that he is making. Another observation he's making is intersectionality and variability of experiences. So he says, further exploration into the intersectionality of identities among Black women faculty highlighted the variability of their experiences across different institutional contexts. For instance, the experiences of those in STEM fields versus the humanities or at predominantly white institutions versus historically Black colleges and universities showcased distinct challenges and opportunities. This variability underscores the importance of nuanced approach to policies and practices that address the specific needs of Black women in academia. So this is another important observation he's making about the variability of experiences with reference to intersectionality of these Black women. The next observation he's making is mentorship and support networks. He says the importance of mentorship and support networks emerged as even more critical in the final phase of data collection. So that's something that he noticed in the initial phase or mid phase of data collection, but now he's saying like it's even more critical, and that what emerged in the final phase of data collection. Participants detailed how such networks serve not only as a source of professional guidance, but also as crucial spaces for emotional support and validation. This finding suggests that Strengthening formal and informal support structures within academia could be a key strategy for mitigating the challenges faced by Black women faculty. And then finally, he talks about another observation, which is strategies for institutional change. And he says conversations with participants in this final round also focused more on strategies for institutional change. Many shared innovative approaches they have taken or witnessed in their institutions to address systemic inequalities, such as developing inclusive hiring practices, establishing equity focused committees, and implementing mentorship programs. These strategies highlight potential pathways for transforming higher education into a more equitable space for all faculty members. So, these are some strategies for institutional change that he is observing in his final phase of data collection process. So, these are four observations he's making, uh, these insights from the data. Now, he also does some reflections on the methodological reflections. So, the first reflection he's making about methodology is theoretical sampling as a pathway to depth. He says, engaging in theoretical sampling, selecting participants and data sources based on emerging insights, has allowed for a more in depth exploration of certain themes. This approach has been instrumental in uncovering the complexities of Black women faculty's experiences and has underscored the importance of flexibility and responsiveness in qualitative research. He's pointing out a very important point in terms of methodological ideas when we do a qualitative research, which is uh, in qualitative research, when you start your process and based on your initial interviews, initial analysis, you change your focus. You may slightly change the focus of your study, slightly change your interview protocol questions to understand and develop certain themes which might be emerging from the initial data. So that's why flexibility and responsiveness in qualitative research is very, very important. So you start your study obviously with certain ideas, methodological considerations, but you're also open to change a bit based on your initial findings. So that's what he's talking about here. He's talking about theoretical sampling. Now, theoretical sampling is a sampling strategy where, based on your initial data collection and data analysis, you you do further recruitment of your research participant based on these initial findings, based on what are the themes, what are the categories that you want to focus, you want to further develop, and based on those, you do further sampling of your research participants. So that's what he is highlighting it here. Another methodological uh, consideration he is highlighting here is challenges on saturation. And this is really important thing. He says, reaching a point of data saturation where no new themes emerge from additional data has been both a milestone and a challenge. Balancing the depth of exploration with the practical limitation of time and resources has required careful consideration. The experiences shared by the last participants, however, affirm the richness of the data collected and the robustness of the emerging analysis. He's highlighting really important point here. He's saying that balancing is it's when it comes to saturation, uh, as a researcher, you have limitations in the sense like how much resources in terms of time, in terms of finance you have at your disposal. So as a researcher, you have to be practical because reaching 100% data saturation is very challenging. You may need to do maybe a lot of interviews than what you initially planned. However, You also want to reach a significant level of saturation before you stop data collection. So, balancing these two things, the one is about the resources that you have in terms of time, in terms of financial support you have for conducting this study, and also reaching a significant level of saturation of data. So balancing is very, very important. And that's what he is sharing his reflection on this point. And finally, he talks about next steps. So he's saying first next step he's talking about is deepening analysis on institutional change. So he says focus on analysis on detailed strategies for institutional change shared by participants, aiming to contribute practical recommendations for higher education institutions. Further, he also talks about expanding the discussion on intersectionality. So he says integrate the findings on the variability of experiences into the broader discussion on intersectionality, highlighting how different institutional contexts impact these experiences. And then he talks about further finalizing the conceptual framework. So he is saying that use the insights from this final phase to refine the study's conceptual framework, ensuring it accurately reflects the complexities and richness of the data. So this researcher is developing a conceptual framework grounded in the data, in the analysis he's doing. And that's what he's saying that he, using the insights that he is sharing in this analytic note, to use that insight uh, into refining his conceptual framework. And finally, he talks about preparing the dissemination. So he says begin outlining papers and presentations. So now he is like in the final phase of data analysis. So he now needs to prepare his report, his research report, and he will start writing about the paper's outline, writing about his manuscript, and if he's doing a conference presentation, research presentation, so he needs to start working on that. So that's what his next steps are. And finally, he talks about his concluding all these things together here. So that's the final section, conclusion section. All right, so that's briefly about an analytic note that is written by a researcher during the final phase of data collection and theoretical sampling. I hope this example would have given you idea about how to write your analytic note, particularly in the context of when you are in the final phase of your data collection and data analysis. I hope this video was helpful for you in giving you ideas about writing your own analytic note when you conduct your study. Thank you very much, and I will see you again in another video on qualitative data analysis.